Welcome back, everyone. You probably didn't hear about this, but there is a committee in the United States Congress that is investigating the response to the pandemic and specifically scientific censorship. Now, you don't hear about this because the mainstream media doesn't want to tell you about scientific censorship going on in some of the world's premier medical journals where they publish peer-reviewed studies. We've got evidence of this censorship that has been going on from the very start of the pandemic. But here's the real, maybe, admission that something was going on. Because the editors from Nature Science, as well as the Lancet, were called to testify. And they were no-shows at this committee hearing, which tells me that these medical journals, that Big Pharma and government regulators appear to me to be all in bed together. That is most certainly an issue. This is the editor-in-chief of Science magazine, basically laying out his displeasure with some of his fellow editors from other organizations. Watch.
I think the politicization of COVID, if we look back on it, is something that we all probably wish we hadn't experienced and hadn't contributed to the extent that we did. I think the scientific community contributed to that sometimes, and I think politicians contributed to it as well. And it would have been nice to have a calmer path through the whole thing, but thankfully science works in a way that got us to a lot of things that did work.
Remember, do your own research was vilified, and now we're learning we can't even trust the research done by professionals. Sad. Well, joining me now is someone we most certainly can trust. He's a world-renowned cardiologist and epidemiologist. He's also become one of the premier experts on COVID, the response, and the vaccine. Of course, I'm talking about Dr. Peter McCullough. Doc, it's great to see you. Thank you for coming on tonight.
Thanks for having me.
All right. You're the one who tipped me off to this, that Nature, Science, and the Lancet are no-shows. What do you make of that?
Well, Science, that was Thorpe. He showed up, but, Lancet, that published the fraudulent hydroxychloroquine paper, completely a fake paper. And then the Nature group did not show up. Remember, Nature published the fraudulent origins of SARS-CoV-2 coming out of the Wuhan wet lab, that it didn't come out of the laboratory. So they were errors of commission. They actually intentionally deceived the research community. I didn't see Elsevier there. Elsevier had actually retracted one of my papers on myocarditis that was fully published, copyrighted, accepted, contracted. They violated every rule on retractions, and they did it 6 days before the pediatric COVID-19 vaccine meetings with the FDA. And now recently, a paper I'm senior author on, and Nathaniel Mead, first author, and that was in the Springer Nature Curious Biomedical Journals of Sciences. That paper set all records for that journal. Again, fully part of medical history. It's retracted in violation of the Committee on Publication Ethics guidelines by Springer Nature Group after it received record downloads and reads. So what we have here is we have government agents probably, and then this biopharmaceutical complex, this collusion between Big Pharma and NGOs working to suppress any hope of early treatment and only promote vaccines, not allowing any fair information on vaccine safety.
Do you think I'm exaggerating when I say that you've got government regulators, the medical journals, and Big Pharma all collaborating to hide the truth from us?
Grant, we think they're all in on it, that this is a carefully coordinated plan to mass vaccinate the world. And in order to do that, all hope of early treatment needs to be suppressed. And then all information on vaccine side effects has to be scrubbed. And people, America, and even the research and practicing communities are not getting a fair evaluation of what's going on.
So I don't know if people at home are aware, but before you burst onto the scene about COVID and the response to it and the vaccine, you were one of the prolific in the amount of things you had published. Correct, Doc? Did you know this was going on when you were publishing all of these things all these years?
I had no idea. I was focusing on the interface between heart and kidney disease. I had basically become the father of the cardiorenal hypothesis, suggesting disease in these organ systems works bidirectionally. I was senior author on one of the most widely cited papers in the New England Journal of Medicine on B-type natriuretic peptide. So I was in my lane. I had no idea that behind the scenes, going back to 2005 with the PrEP Act, there was a plan for a global pandemic, and there was a plan for pandemic response measures, so-called countermeasures that are indemnified, and that so many different entities were working for this ideal of mass vaccinating the world. And it's a tragedy that the vaccines turned out to be unsafe and ineffective, and the world has suffered.
Well, it sure is. And then you think about the people we were taught to trust. You grew up trusting, and I've always been skeptical, but I never thought it would turn out like this. And I remember reading about the emails from Dr. Fauci to those researchers to change their story or their paper about the lab leak theory. And Republican Representative Brad Weinstrup brought this up in the hearing. Let me play the clip for you and then get your response. Cut one.
So from our investigations here on the Select Subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic, we know that what's happened during COVID-19, we know what happened during COVID-19. Dr. Anderson, who was one of the authors of Proximal Origins, said Dr. Fauci prompted this for us to get together and write this. I didn't make that up. It's not a lie. Those were his words that we have gotten through our investigation.
And yet, Dr. McCullough, nobody, it seems, has ever been held accountable for any of this.
No, Brad Renstrup's made it clear. Now, Fauci, Francis Collins, Jeremy Farrar at the Wellcome Trust, they organized a cover-up. They knew the virus was created in a U.S.-Chinese collaboration in the Wuhan lab. They knew it because they were part of the creation of the virus. What they did is they covered it up, and they had Christian Anderson write this fake paper saying that it must have come out of a wet market. There were 12 fraudulent papers written. They had planned this. Now emails that have been uncovered by Senator Rand Paul show that David Morens, who's underneath Fauci, is communicating through phone and through Gmail and through government emails with Peter Daszak, the EcoHealth Alliance. He's another co-conspirator. And in the end, they say they're going to protect each other. Daszak says he has 15,000 samples of coronaviruses in Wuhan, and he's worried about losing his connection to those valuable samples. These guys want to hold power with dangerous pathogens and then vaccines and therapeutics, because this is the new biological warfare game.
This is the thing, sadly. Most of America still is in the dark about a lot of this. They're catching on that there's something wrong with the vaccine, but they're in the dark about the details. And I know we'll never stop on getting the word out. I know you won't, Doc. I'll give you the last word on this. What do you tell your fellow people in the medical profession, doctors? You still write papers for these journals, or are you done with them?
We work across a variety of journals. Now, we've started a new journal, Dr. Jack Lyons-Weiler, formerly at University of Pittsburgh, new independent medical journal, not pharma-connected, will never be biased by pharmacists, called the Journal of Science, Technology, Public Health, and the Law. That is going to be, I think, a winner. And we know what I tell my colleagues is say, listen, I saw one the other day in Dallas, Grant. I said, listen, you better get on the right side of history, because it's all coming out.
Yep, it sure is. Thanks to people like you, Dr. McCullough, and we sure do appreciate you coming on the program, sharing some time with us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Folks, it's really so disheartening because information was not only hidden from us, but we were lied to about things from people in charge that we were supposed to trust. I'll tell you what, I'm never going to get over it, and I'm never going to give up until someone is held accountable. Dr. Fauci, you're top of the list, by the way. All right, coming up, Joe Biden got the word cannibals trending on X today. Wait till you hear this.